Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. Thank you for joining us. On Capitol Hill, Republicans and Democrats were able to find common ground on a massive initial aid package to address the coronavirus crisis. But now there are signs that consensus is beginning to fracture over the need for more help. Here to discuss that and more this morning is Congresswoman Annie Kuster. Thanks for joining us, Congresswoman.
Good morning, Adam. Great to be with you as always.
Thank you. And a growing number of your Republican colleagues are calling for the economy to reopen, and they believe that's the help the country needs right now instead of another round of a $2 trillion CARES Act Part 2. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I think we've got to listen to the public health officials and the scientists to make sure that we have a really solid plan for how we reopen the economy. It is important. I do want to reopen the economy, but I don't want it to cause a spike in COVID-19 cases and overwhelm the hospitals and end up having to go back into a new stay-at-home order. So what we want to do is a very conscientious plan. We've been studying all of the options in my office. I'll be putting out a proposal on that. I'll be working with the governor and elected officials around the state. And I think we'll do a really good job. And I think we can keep people safe, but get back to work and get back to school.
Now, the Small Business Administration is saying it's already out of money to help small businesses with loans and whatnot. Is the need still out there right now from the constituents and the businesses you're hearing from in District 2?
Well, absolutely. But I do want to say the program has been quite successful here in New Hampshire. Over 7,000 loans have already been written, and it's going to bring $1.5 billion, Adam, here to New Hampshire. I want to commend the SBA and the officials that have been working double overtime, as well as our community banks that helped our small businesses navigate those applications. We do need more funding, and I've called upon Speaker Pelosi and President of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, to come together on a new proposal to add $250 billion for small businesses, and making sure that we're focused on rural communities that have been hit hard by this economic downturn.
Now, I think a lot of people want to help out here, but we don't know the duration of how long this is going to last. How long do you think taxpayers should be on the hook via the SBA and whatnot to help these businesses out? Because this could take a long time.
Well, if we do this in a conscientious, careful way, plan out the reentry, then I'm very confident that businesses will get back up and running. And most importantly, that people will feel that they're safe, that their families are safe, and they can re-engage in the economy. They can start to go out, obviously, to work is the first priority, but then getting back to school, getting back to recreation. I think we'll still have some limitations, not gathering in large groups. Obviously, we'll want to be conscientious about our physical distancing and making sure that we're taking every step to stay safe. But I have a good feeling that here in New Hampshire, by working together, we'll flatten the curve, bring down the number of cases, and then we'll have a very good program for testing and isolating each new case and making sure that we do the contact monitoring to find out who has been exposed and then monitor their health. So I've got a good feeling about this here in New Hampshire. We're all working together in a bipartisan way. Everybody's rolling up their sleeves. We're going to get this done, and people are going to be able to enjoy the summer.
It seems like to get to that point, we're going to need a vast expansion of testing, and that it would appear to be a problem that's begging for sort of a federal solution rather than the 50-state kind of patchwork that we're seeing at the time right now. How are we going to get there? Is that something Congress is going to be able to work on, or the president? And do you agree that this is a federal issue?
I do, Adam, and I don't want to get overly political. We're trying not to be political and work together. I've been sorely disappointed by the lack of leadership coming from the White House on the issue of testing. Our very first bill that we passed over a month ago was all about increasing testing. It's been nothing but a fiasco ever since. So instead, we're working closely with Governor Sununu and, frankly, with our local healthcare providers. I want to give a shout out here to Dartmouth Hitchcock and the people up at Dartmouth Medical School that put together their own testing. We have received 15 of the new Abbott machines, but as you point out, we didn't get the test kits to go with it. We've got to have a federal solution, and we've got to distribute those test kits as soon as possible. It's critical to have testing for our frontline healthcare workers, for our first responders. I've been talking to police and firefighters around the state, and to make sure that we can isolate the cases going forward. The only way to do that is through testing and knowing who tests positive for coronavirus, COVID-19.
And you mentioned those frontline workers. You think of the police, the firefighters, EMTs, nurses, doctors. Their efforts right now are nothing short of heroic. But we're also seeing in this pandemic another group of people brought in there, people like grocery store clerks who didn't necessarily sign up for life and death kind of jobs. Do you think collectively we're doing enough for those people who are on the front lines but had not been sort of thought of in that way previously, like the grocery store folks?
Well, I did talk with the grocers over the last couple of weeks, and the grocery wholesalers. Don't forget the people that are distributing the food as well. I was impressed that some of our wholesalers have stepped up to increase the pay, and I'm hoping that grocers on the front lines will also get an increase in pay. I'm working on a hazard pay proposal coming out of Congress so that we can reimburse for that type of, as you say, heroic deed. They didn't sign up for this. The other step is that I want to make sure that they feel safe in the workplace. And this is why it's so important for us to limit our trips. Don't go to the grocery store just to wander around because you're bored, or the hardware store or a retail store. Limit your trips, wear your mask, protect those on the front line. We've got to keep them safe.
If Congress is going to take further action, you're going to have to get together in some fashion or another. Is it safe for Congress to meet right now? And what would a future session or gathering of Congress look like?
Well, that's exactly what we're discussing with our colleagues, Adam. And I don't think it would be safe to bring 435 people back into the same room working together as we have traditionally right now. But what we're working on is a proposal where we could take turns going. I did go down to Washington to vote on the CARES 3 package. I was very fortunate, and a shout out to the people at Manchester Airport. It was safe there. It was practically empty, but people were keeping their distance. The flight was safe and rather empty as well. So I think what we need to do is take turns stepping up to take those votes. And we need to do more by way of technology to do our committee work online and by phone. And that's what we've been doing of late. I spend countless hours on the phone conference calls and such. And we are moving forward, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done. And I will be equally proud of this next CARES package. And we want to make sure, by the way, that we have more funding coming to the hospitals and the frontline healthcare workers. They've got to have the supplies and the personal protective equipment that they need to do their job safely.
So in Washington, twice in the last week, the president has made comments that have kind of raised eyebrows in regards to what he perceives as his powers as the executive. In one instance, he referred to his power in this pandemic as, quote, total, and he threatened to invoke and never used Article 3 aspect of his constitutional power to adjourn Congress if there is disagreement about adjournment. How do you read these statements? Is this the usual bluff and bluster, or is this cause for alarm?
I personally think it's cause for alarm. I think that the best leadership is shown by those heads of state that are working in a calm and deliberate manner, bringing people together, calming the waters, not creating more consternation. The last thing we need right now is a showdown between the White House and the United States Congress. So far, we have worked well together. Treasurer Secretary Mnuchin has been very successful in negotiating bipartisan deals with our leadership and with the Senate. And I hope that level heads in the White House will prevail, and that those people that can influence this president will do so, and that we will move forward together as a country.
This pandemic originated in China, and there's been more and more reporting done on how their initial handling of this made the situation much, much worse. Does China need to offer some kind of reparations? There's a need to be some action taken against them, do you think, by the global community when this is all said and done?
I think when all this is all said and done, we will look back. But this ties into your previous question about the president, because what we need is strong international cooperation through organizations like the World Health Organization. And actually, if we go back and look at January, February, our president was not open to helping out in that situation and making sure that what they did was, in the best interest, not just of the Chinese, but of the global community. One of the things that this virus is teaching all of us is that it does not respect country lines, state lines, county lines, and we have to learn to work together. And again, I think it's a lack of leadership and tension in that relationship that exacerbated the situation. So we will need to analyze. Another piece that was lost is the Office of Pandemic Response that the president eliminated. That would have given us that surveillance of international health and outbreaks of pandemics that would have given us the time to plan and prepare.
All right, Congresswoman Annie Kuster, thanks for joining us on Close Up. Be well up there in Hopkinton.